Are we live? Am I
I don't think
pretty?
I don't think we're live anywhere apart from in your head.
But am I pretty though?
Oh yeah, live.
We are live.
No, we're not.
We're not live,
No.
but at least I'm pretty.
Oh, we are live.
Oh, come
Oh yeah.
on.
It's good job. Okay, let me just put this link into the group. Uh, hey everyone, Alexandra messed up the first stream link, so hence the trouble then at the start.
Yeah,
Do you want to introduce yourself, Alex?
I'm sorry for that. I'm Alex and I messed up the stream. And other than that, yeah, I'm Alexandra. I've been starting taking poker seriously and, starting climbing through stakes and getting coached in the pandemic. Now I mainly play 200, 500 and out on GG Poker. And yeah, today we're gonna look into three bet pots with my friend and fellow coach Paul.
Who said we're friends? Yeah, so hey everyone. Been studying and playing for the last 2, 3 years. Playing full time at the moment and studying a bunch with Alexandra off the table. So yeah, today we're going to look at three bet pots. Just so you all know, we have Black Friday sales on at Run It Once, so you guys can get. I think it's yeah, you can get up to 50% on Run It Once courses, books, and Vision GTO Trainer. So if you type !Black Friday into the chat, the link will come up for those. You can also join our Discord. So if you put !Discord into the chat, you'll be able to join our Discord where we have a lot of cash game players. So if you'd like to join a like-minded community. And if you'd like Essential, then put !Essential into the chat and follow the link for that. Okay, then should we jump into some hands?
Okay, then let's jump into some hands. So all of these pots are going to be three bet pots. These are from some of the students that we work with, and we've tried to pick some spots that we found interesting, or we thought that there might be more people who have some legs or struggling those spots. So the first hand, there is an opening middle position. He gets called three bet open middle position, three bet by cutoff, and our hero goes for a call. This hand is actually supposed to be mixing here. So in these positions, what you're gonna see is a lot of four betting. Calling here is not a mistake, but if you always call all of these hands and never consider four betting, then these kind of mistakes kind of compound. Okay. Our hero goes for a check. I don't think we're gonna have any donks on this board, and he faces a check back. Turn is a 6, and here I'm not sure how we're supposed to play in theory. I assume we want to bet quite polar. In practice, I don't think people protect their checking back ranges enough. I think they're quite face up, so I wouldn't mind actually going a bit thinner here and sometimes value bet this, but that being said, check is also not a mistake. Anything to say about this, Paul?
Yeah, I think I would just play polar on this board. I wouldn't look to have any bets with hands like tens or eights or jacks if we have those. I think I would just keep my range towards Queen X, strong Queen X, and then 6X. So going for a bigger size when I do bet here. So yeah, I like if we check.
Okay. He goes for a check, and now we face a half pot delayed C bet. My first thoughts on this is that this guy is probably a weaker player, so I'm not sure if he's a recreational or if he's like just a more face up passive neaty rag. But I'm almost certain this is not like a super solid player. So facing this, I think it really depends on who the villain is. How would you react versus this C-bet?
Yeah, I think you're right. The way I would view this spot is thinking about who I'm playing against first of all. If you're playing against a tighter player, whether that's a recreational or a regular, they're generally going to protect their range, so that this bet, we're in a tough spot here. I think we could continue. If you're playing against a bad regular or a bad recreational, then what you can often find is that they check back flop and then stab. Bet turns way too often, so they can have a bunch of hands like ace king, ace 10, king 10, king jack, maybe hands like ace 4, ace 5, ace 7, ace 8. So against people who are generally 3-betting enough pre-flop, I think I would always be continuing, because they could potentially have way too many of those type of hands in their range when they bet for half pot on the turn.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think that's right. So this is why I think sometimes taking notes can be very, very helpful, or at least knowing his stats. Because if you're again someone who's 3-betting here very wide, then he's gonna have a lot of bluff candidates, and I would like to look him up. But if you're facing someone who has like a 6% 3-bet and it's just like a super neaty face-up rag, then I will be less reluctant to look him up, and I would probably just go for a fold on the turn. As I think when he goes for half pot here, it's very, very often he's also going to bluff the river if he has bluffs, or like fire the river. Our hero goes for a call. The river is a jack, he checks, and now our villain goes for half pot again, which makes me think even more he's some kind of weaker player. Don't think this is much of a thing. And again, I think this is quite face up. So it's either quite face up, either quite a really wide range. So again, just like on the turn, I would really like to know who villain is before making a call here. And if we're playing against a complete unknown, I think I would go for a call, because I just expect this to be a recreational and probably has some random click buttons quite often here.
Yeah, I agree. Against recreational, as I said, they can have a lot of hands. Obviously, king jack and king 10 improve. Don't think he's going to be betting much of his king jack, but they're still going to have hands like, as I said, ace 10, ace 4, ace 5, ace 7, ace 8 suited. They could potentially have some 7, 8 suited. So there's a bunch of hands here that we're ahead of. And for the half pot sizing, you have to remember that we don't have to be correct very often. We only need to win this 25% of the time. So it's fine that we can call this spot and lose it a bunch. So I think against the recreational or a weaker regular, I'm always just going to click call. If I'm against a tighter recreational or regular, I think I'm mostly going to fold. I wouldn't hate a jam, block in a hand like king 10, which can get here. But I think mostly against the tighter players, I think going for a fold is going to be good.
Yeah, I agree. And also, like, depending who we're playing against, I don't think it's out of question that some people are gonna do this with ace king, just thinking that he's gonna get us to fold stuff like 7s or 8s or I don't know what, or 10s. So yeah, I think calling is fine. He goes for a jam though. So you don't hate the jam here. I don't think I like it much, because first of all, we get good enough odds to call, and I think what's happening in some of these spots is that when imposition bets half pot, a lot of people are kind of aware they are a bit capped and might get bluffed on, so they do tend to call a bit wider after they bet small and get raised, compared to after they bet big and get raised, at least in the data that I've seen. So yeah, I don't really like this shove, because I think you mostly just get to fold hands that you already beat and you could just call against. I don't think it's necessary. I'm not saying it's necessarily losing EV, but I think calling is higher EV here.
Yeah, I also don't think that we don't rep a ton of value here as well. We're going to go for a lot of check raises on the turn with most of our value hands. So I think we do have to be quite selective about bluffs on this river, and I think maybe just bluffing a hand like Jack 10, because again we're gonna check raise a bunch of Jack 10 on the turn, so we're not going to have probably four combos of that, but maybe just having the 2 or 3 combos that we do have is probably enough. And again, you're blocking pocket jacks, you're blocking queen jack, you're blocking king 10. So yeah, maybe just turning something like Jack 10 into a bluff here is enough. Because I think our only real value range here is really, jacks that get here sometimes, and maybe some pocket nines that we didn't, and the one combo of pocket sixes. But again, it's not like a massive value range that we get to the river here with, and king 10 as well. But again, once we face that turn bet, it's probably not 4 combos, I would imagine.
No, like some of those should be for betting pre-flop very often in this
Ye-
configuration, and then even though we won't check raise the turn, a lot of those will also probe the turn. So yeah, I agree. We're not
Exactly.
trapping much value, and you said maybe turn jack 10 into a bluff. I think again, if we're against a regular or something, that's good. But like if we're against a recreational here, and we have reads on him, I don't think we have to bluff anything. Like if our bluffs are not profitable, we just don't have to go for it. If we're against someone weak, we don't need to care about being balanced. Should we go?
Yeah, exactly. One thing I wanted to just highlight is Matthew Rebel in the chat said any folding pre-flop with 10-10. I think this would be interesting to actually pull up for the guys if you can jump onto GTO Wizard, because I don't think there will be any folding really with tens.
I think depending on rate structure, it's actually going to be very, very close. I know if we're under the gun against MP3, but in a high rake structure, it's actually folding sometimes. So I'm not sure about these exact positions, but let's see.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. I'd imagine that we're going to be having quite a lot of four bets here at NL50 as opposed to calls.
Are we looking at GTO Wizard here? Yeah, right. Okay, so let's pick NL50 against 2.5x and hijack raise cutoff calls. Let's see what hijack's reaction is supposed to be. Yeah, it's actually quite indifferent between, like it's basically indifferent between 4-betting, calling or folding in this reg structure, so.
Yeah, something I want to highlight to people in the chat here, because it's not always intuitive, is you see a lot of hands like, pocket tens or things like king 10 suited, king jack suited, ace 10 suited go for 4 bets. And if we just click 4 bet, the reason why a bunch of those king jacks, king 10s, ace 10s are going to be going for 4 bets is because you see what imposition is supposed to be calling with. So they're going to be calling with hands that, hands that we're going to be flipping against in a way. So, 10s, 9s, 8s, 7s, they're going to have hands like 5, 6, 6, 7 suited at some frequency. And again, the reason we sometimes 4-bet with a hand like pocket 10s is because they should, in theory, have some of those weaker hands. And then they should also be calling with hands like king 10, king jack, king queen. So it's important against good players to have like a balanced range, because you want to be able to cover a lot of board textures.
All right. Anything else to look at here, or should we go back to the hands? Do you want to check post flop?
No, I was just going to say that Tobias said that this guy was a 24 VPIP, 20 PFR, 10 3-bet, and he was in a bad reg. So against someone like that, I think finding some jams on the river is going to be okay, because he should be 3-betting enough. He should have enough, he should have bluffs, a bunch of bluffs in that spot that are going to be auto folds. So I actually don't mind the play with the benefit of knowing that Philem was a bad reg.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I guess it's close. I just think we don't accomplish much more by raising than we would by calling.
Yeah, I agree as well. Against a bad break.
If he's calling this hand, now we know the results, but I think this is what you'll often see. Weak-ish hand, but that's not gonna end up folding. Or a hand that you already beat. So honestly, I still don't really like the jam.
Yeah, as I was just going to say before you rudely interrupted me.
As always.
It's just that going for a call, I think, is just generally always going to be good here if you think he's a bad reg, because he is going to have a lot of those ace kings, as we mentioned, ace 10s, ace x, 7, 8.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's go to the next hand then.
Okay.
A lot of tight range spots today. Okay, pre-flop is quite standard, and then the flop is 7-3-3. Our hero goes for a half pot, but I think in theory, what you're going to see here is bigger bets because our value range is going to want to go big. Like we have a big overpair advantage here. We want to, start getting value from the flop with those hands. But I think in practice, I actually don't really mind a half pot range bet, especially if you 3-bet a bit more linear from the big blind, because people are going to make mistakes. They are supposed to have a lot of raising here against the range bet, which they will likely not find. And then they are also going to probably overfold by a bit, so I don't mind the half pot range bet here. Paul, anything to add for the flop?
No, just to agree with you generally that I think this is fine against a player or a player pool that isn't as aware of what they should be doing versus a half pot range bet. But in general, I would be looking to bet polar here and bet for a bigger sizing and implement checks as well. And this hand could do either in that line.
Yeah, good check call. I don't think check raising is gonna be much of a thing, but like betting, check calling is probably gonna be the most frequent option. Okay, he goes for a call, and the turn is an ace. On this turn, I think we have different options. I think we could keep betting small and still bet some under pairs at some frequency, or I think we could go a bit more polar and start betting big with this hand. Yeah, I think if our opponents tend to not stab enough here, going for thinner value and betting a bit more often is the way to go. I don't know, Paul, any thoughts on this spot, on this turn strategy?
Yeah. So first of all, Tobias says that he's not range betting the flop. So he said I may as well size up. So I agree with that. If he's not range betting the flop, then for sure we want to choose a bigger size, just because our value range is going to be driven by hands like jacks, queens, kings. So betting for a bigger size for sure. Then once we get onto this turn, yeah, I think this is going to be. I'm not sure what the solver will say here, but for me, intuitively, I would bet this more often than not, I think. So we are obviously going to have hands like tens, jacks, queens, kings that got to this spot, and I still think that they're worth a value bet against villains who are going to have a lot of hands like fours, fives, sixes, 7x, pocket eights, nines, tens. They're still going to have a bunch of hands that should have called the flop, like king queen suited with a backdoor, king jack suited, king 10 suited, queen jack suited, queen 10 suited. All those type of hands with backdoors should have been calling as well. So with a hand like pocket jacks, you're getting like some thin value. You're also getting some protection. As for ace king, I think I'm mostly going to continue here for the reasons that you said. I think if I check here, I just expect opponents to not find enough bluffs. I think they're going to check back way too much. So I would probably just end up putting this into a bet very often line.
Yeah.
And going for something like 33%.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't really mind the size. I think going for 1/3 here, betting thin is fine. Going big, I think it's fine. But I don't really like checking here in practice unless we have a read that our opponent is just super aggressive and is just gonna fire here against the check very often with all his bluffs. Then I don't really mind it like this for the reasons that you also mentioned. He checks back, and the river is an ace. Our hero goes for a shove, which I kind of like because here, our villain's range is gonna be bluff catchers or that I think are gonna be quite indifferent to sizings. When an ace rolls on the river, it's basically a lower chance for us to have an ace, especially after checking the turn. So, yeah, I think I like going for a shove here.
Yeah, I agree.
We do get the hero. But yeah, we get heroed here because the run-up is good for us, but in a lot of situations we just lose value by picking this line and, not going for a bet on the turn. Should we go next time? Do you want to add something?
No, thanks.
Thanks. You're very welcome for the big opportunity. Okay, open under the gun. And hero 3 bets from the small blind. We get a call, and the board is 7-6 deuce. We go for, I'm not really sure what setting it is, so something like 2/3. I think it's basically the same scenario. Our value range probably wants to go bigger here. This is not a spot that we can range bet anymore. So when we do bet, I think we'd like to size up a bit. And this hand is quite a decent c bet. It can be put into other lines as well. And he calls, turns a queen. Paul, anything to add to talk about here?
No.
No. Okay, he goes for another c bet, which I think is fine. You do block some ace queen suited, king queen suited. Even if he has some queen x, you can still river a pair that's better than that, and you can get hands like 8s, 9s, something like that to fold here. One thing that I would add is like maybe in theory it might not be much of a thing, but especially after we bet flop a bit smaller, I think we can also add some smaller bets in here and keep value betting a bit thin. And also with our bluffs, I think that's good because we keep his range a bit wider, so the SPR on the river is going to be higher, and in practice we're probably going to generate a bit more folds by the river. So I think in practice that's gonna work a bit better, although this is not necessarily a mistake. Under the gun calls.
Yeah, so on that turn, I agree with you that I wouldn't be betting so big on the turn exploitatively. I would continue to have smaller bets, and I think this is a really good hand to continue betting with. Main points being now we block the queen really hard with our ace-king combination, because villain should be continuing on the flop with like king, queen of spades and ace, queen of diamonds. So pretty good turn card for our range as well.
Okay, and once we get to the river, our hero decides to go for a shove.
Oh, sorry, I misclicked.
Okay, he goes for a shove and gets called by tens, and this is probably, like some villains are gonna decide on the turn here and never really fold another pair while after they call such a big bet and everything misses. So I think you can actually make an argument to give up river if you bet so big on the turn, again because people just don't tend to fold enough here.
Yeah, I still think I would shove this at some frequency though. As you said, we've got some good blockers. We want to have bluffs against good players here as well. I think this is one of our better ones.
Should we go to the next hand then?
Yeah.
So we threw out ace king from the big blind against cutoff. Board is queen deuce deuce. And we go for a half pot bet. I think I would be looking to bet a bit smaller here and just go for a range bet, especially against population. And if we go half pot, I think range betting is not a viable solution anymore, and it just makes life easier for us. Also, people don't tend to react well to that, so yeah, I think that's the strategy I would implement. What about you?
No, I think I like this. I think I would generally look to go for this size, maybe even slightly bigger in some situation. Yeah, maybe even slightly bigger, and split between bet and check. I think I'm generally going to be wanting to bet a lot with my queen x plus and not implement too many bets with. I mean, I'm not going to have a lot of lower pocket pairs, probably just jacks and tens at some frequency. So yeah, I'm probably just going to bet this size, maybe slightly bigger, and implement some checks as well. But if I'm looking to bet, I think this is a nice combination to do So with sometimes I would prefer to have a spade. So generally better more when I have the ace or king of spades, but sometimes without as well, because we sometimes want to be able to have some bluffs unblocking spades in our opponent's hands.
Okay, we get called, and the turn's a 3. We continue to barrel, which, yeah, I guess it's fine. We still block ace queen, king queen suited, which is quite good. We still have overcarries to a queen. We might get looked at by some other pairs, but they also might fold on the turn. I think this is actually quite a good bluff. Of course, it would be great to have a flush draw, but that's not always possible. So, yeah, I like this pot in terms of sizing. I think it's fine. You could also go slightly bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as long as you're not doing this all the time with all of your ace king combinations, something that I see lower stakes players do is just do this with every combination of ace king. And if we do that, then we can potentially be way over bluffing in some of these spots, because you may also be doing that with a hand like king 10 and king jack as well as maybe other hands like ace 4, ace 5, maybe some 4-5 when we've got that too, flush draws. So as long as we're not always doing an action, I think this is going to be good. Matthew Rebol asks if we should ever flat ace king off in the big blind, and also my mic is really bad, Alexandra. If you can fix that, I'm not sure.
No, I don't really. I can't really do anything right now during the stream.
Okay, I'm going to mostly dip out for this then. I'll stay here, but I'm not going to talk too much because there's been a couple of complaints about the mic.
All right. So if we should ever flat ace king in the big blind, yeah, I think that's a thing against earlier positions open. And one thing that you see is that the smaller their open is, the more we tend to flat. So like if we're gonna flat more against 2x compared to 2.5x because the odds of calling are worse. But against cutoff, no, I wouldn't be really looking to flat any ace king off. And also against earlier position, something that's going on is that people tend to not 4-bet enough from early positions. So ace king is gonna be in quite a spot when getting 4-bet in such a tight range spot. So again, we can have a look into GTO Wizard and see if under the gun opens and then big blind raises. This is a bit smaller. Under the gun should find a lot of 4-bet bluffs with stuff like ace deuce through ace 5, or maybe different combos depending on ranges. Ace king off, ace king suited are 4-bet very often, king jack, king 10. All of these hands people tend to miss, so then we are gonna realize a bit more equity when we 4-bet, 3-bet ace king from the big blind. Okay, so he goes for a bet, which, as Paul said, is fine as long as you don't always do it, and the river is another queen. And our hero goes for a check. What we've noticed here with the student is that he actually tends to do this very, very often. Just go for a double barrel in 3-bet pot and then fold on the and then give up on the river. So also in this hand, I think this is quite a big problem because this is pretty much the nut bluff, double blocking suited ace queen twice, and then also I'm blocking spades under pairs. I think we should always fire this, but he decides to go for a check, and yeah, villain shows up with jacks. So again, sometimes we do give this up on the turn, sometimes this particular combo not on the river, but it's important not to always go for a double barrel and then check the river because that's gonna lose us a bunch of EV.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that definitely on the river, I would always be turning this into a bluff. We're gonna unblock a lot of ace x of hearts. We're unblocking all spades. We're doing a very good job of blocking king queen suited and ace queen suited. So yeah, if I got here with ace king of these combinations, I would always bluff. but I wouldn't always bluff on flops and turns with this hand.
Okay, let's see what other hands we've marked here for the stream. 3-bet ace queen off against under the gun. I think this is from the same student, and I'm wondering if, I don't know, you might change the 3-bet sizing according to hand strength. You probably shouldn't do that and just have a standard sizing. We get called, and again we see a half pot c-bet.
Before we run on here, Dean C has asked, in general, do we think that a double paired board is over or under bluffed?
I think it's mostly going to be over bluffed, and that's because, I mean, obviously it depends on the texture and what exactly the cards are and the positions. It's going to be less over bluffed when the ranges are tight compared to when the ranges are wide. But what happens in a bunch of these spots is that you need to go very, very thin for value. And so we can actually have a quick look at a spot like this. So you get what I'm saying. I think I actually have a safe solution. So small blind versus big blind 3-bet automatic size list bit, something like
just look at the same spot. Queen 3-3 queen.
Queen 3-3.
Or was it queen 2-2?
See, we bet jacks as out of position. We bet very wide.
It had a flush draw.
Okay, this is interesting.
I would keep it as the solution, but sorry.
Well, if we want to show if it's under bluff, like over bluffed, I don't think when this is happening it's going to be
you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Also on a queen X, I'm not sure if we are supposed to keep barreling that thin, as villain is probably gonna have a bunch of queen X in this spot as well, but let's pick a blank turn. Yeah, now we are supposed to be a bit more polar. If the turn pairs though, let's put not a double flush draw. You see we are still supposed to go for value with jacks, tens, nines. And once they call and the river is a blank, these hands are always going for a shove. So what's going to happen in practice very often is that if you make him, give up these ones, so let's say he's not ever shoving for value with tens, jacks, and nines, what's going to happen is that we remove some of his value bets, but he's still keeping in the bluffs. So when he shoves, we're not really folding any bluff catchers anymore. And this is something that's very common, but as the ranges get much tighter, then we probably don't have to go as thin for value anymore. So then it's a bit harder to be over bluffing. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, can you jump back to that hand history just so I can explain something? No, the hand. Yeah. The previous hand.
Aren't we on the hand?
No. This is hand. And then go to the river. So what I just wanted to highlight to you guys was what Alexandra was talking about when she said a tight range spot versus a wide range spot. So what she means there is, in big blind versus cutoff, the range is generally going to be much tighter than if this was, say, a small blind versus button spot. So in small blind versus button, small blind is going to have a lot more combinations of hands like ace 10 off at some frequency, king 10 off at some frequency, king jack off at some frequency. So they're going to have a lot more hands that they can potentially bluff. Now, as you just seen, when she ran the no block, even all of our ace highs were calling here because people were supposed to be bluffing. People are not value betting, their nines, tens, and jacks. And this is something that you're going to see in game. You will even see nittier opponents not value a better hand like pocket kings or pocket aces sometimes as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, should we go to the next hand then? Are there any other questions?
No, I think it's fine. The board that we ran in GTO Wizard was slightly different, but it was just highlighting the same principles.
Yeah, it does change a little bit, as you've seen, if the turn is a blank, because then we just have a polar strategy on the turn, and by the river we miss those mergier hands.
Okay.
Okay, so this hand, again, the same principle that we talked about already. We probably want to go bigger on this board and bet more polar. I think exploitatively going for a range bet is fine, but again, going for bigger bets and implementing some checks might be better. How would you play here?
Yeah, so again, I would go polar, just because of the makeup of the ranges. Again, I'm going to be wanting to bet my strongest Jack X plus for value, and so I'm going to have checks with hands like pocket nines and pocket tens. So yeah, big or check for me here.
He uses half pot. As the previous board, I don't think this is a mistake, but we need to be careful because we keep seeing this trend, well, where we're just maybe range betting half pot on every board and then barreling the turn and giving up the river. And something that I would like to mention is that in these spots, once we see bet the flop, especially when we range, but we want to be a bit more selective with our bluffs, especially out of position, because we want to have some kind of equity. And if we don't have enough hands that do have enough equity, what we want is to at least block his calls or unblock his autofolds. So here, with this hand, we do block some missed backdoors. We don't really block ace jack suited because he's not gonna have ace jack off. We also block some stuff like queen 10 that might fold on the turn, and we don't block any values. So I don't think I really like continuing with this. So I think I would just give up the turn. Any other thoughts about turn, Paul?
No, I agree. Generally given at this spot.
Yeah, but he does go for a bet, which gets called. The river's a 9 and he gives up again, and by this time I think this seems like a pattern. I'm not saying this is a good river bluff necessarily, but if you always bet this on the turn, sometimes you probably have to keep betting it on the river. Would you always give this up on if you bet the turn? I guess we just don't bet the turn that often.
Yeah, we don't bet the turn, so it's tough to say what we do on the river because we're never here. But in general, as you said, we're seeing this pattern from a particular student, and we see it from other players at lower stakes as well. Very often going bet check with a lot of bluffs. So yeah, just be careful that you guys are not doing that in your games as well.
Next hand then, this is gonna be, there is another hand after this one.
Okay, just gonna let everybody know again about the Black Friday deal, so you can get 50% off Run It Once by using the links in the chat.
Also, if you want to join our Discord, we're running quite a lot of interesting study sessions, nice discussions. You can post hand histories and so on, so Paul's gonna leave the link to the Discord is also in the chat. Here we see another 3-bet big blind against cutoff. Villain calls and the board is ace-10-5 with a flush draw. We go for a small bet, which I assume is going to be a range bet. I think this really depends on how you construct your range in the big blind. What you see sometimes in theory is that on ace high boards, we are not allowed to do as much c-betting from the big blind compared to the small blind because our range is more polar, and we just call a bunch of ace-x and we don't have as many. But yeah, it depends. It just depends on how much ace-x you have in your range. Would you go polar here, Paul, or would you range bet? How would you approach this spot?
generally, if the board is rainbow, I end up going for a very frequent, so like a range bet for a small size. But I tend to change my strategy on a double. Oh, what are these boards called? When it's only two
Two-tone.
suits.
Two-tone, flash draw, whatever you
Two, two,
want.
two, 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 two-tone or flush draw. Yeah, when they a two-tone, I generally implement either a bigger bet or a check.
Okay, I guess if you bet big or check, you mostly go for a check with jacks here, right?
Yeah.
Again, something that I want to highlight is that in a lot of spots it doesn't really matter all that much, what strategy you pick or what size you pick, and what's more important is just to construct your range well for that sizing. And also, sometimes you might want to implement different strategies against different types of opponents, and that's why it's important to like always stack players, take notes, and try to know who you're facing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good point because, yeah, when you ask me what my strategy is in this spot, for me it completely depends on the player. Some players I'm going to play this spot completely different to other players, especially because I've taken notes and got some history with those guys and deviating. We go for a small one and fill in calls.
The turn is a 3. Here I think I don't really see the point of. I mean, yeah, exploitatively against very, very passive guys, I think I actually do see the point of batting Mergy, but I think the standard strategy against most people is to just shift towards a more polar batting strategy, and I don't really see the point of batting jacks. So I think this hand is mostly always gonna be a check.
Yeah, when you say about betting emoji, again, if this was a board like Queen 10 5-3, then potentially that's going to be something we could do because we're going to be able to get some 10x to call. We're going to be able to get some Ace X or King X potentially to fold. But on an ace high board, I would just always be checking this spot.
Yeah, I agree with you mostly. I know I've actually done some experiments at some point against players who are very, very passive and under bluffing, and then also not raising enough against 1/3 c-bet. And what you were seeing is that on boards that had a lot of draws available, you could still bet mergy on even on these ace high boards, which I think is a strategy that people kind of disregard, too quickly. But I think that would be a bit more viable if it was something like ace 10 7, or ace 10 6, where you have a lot more gut shots and stuff like that than on board like ace 10 5. So our hero goes for a check, and we face 1/3 stab. Thoughts on this?
I think this is extremely close. The sizing is extremely small, but I don't expect Villain to be going for a stab here with many 10x hands. His range is obviously highly condensed around ace-x hands, and then higher equity hands like flush draws. And Pocket Jacks is doing quite a bad job in that. It's blocking some natural bluffs that we want Villain to have here, which is going to be something like, King Jack or Queen Jack. So I actually wouldn't hate a nitty fold here, and then continue more hands like, for instance, Jack 10 over Jacks or even 9-10. You're going to have more outs to improve against ace-x, and you're going to be doing a better job of blocking hands like pocket tens and ace 10. Yeah, so I think this is really close here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. And something that people tend to get wrong in this spot is that we need 19% equity to call, which is not really true. Like, we need 19% EV to call here. And the difference is that even though we probably have 19% equity, our equity realization is really, really bad with a hand like Jacks out of position. So we probably don't have enough EV in this spot. And when you take into account what mass database MDA says here, is that these ace high boards tend to be really, really underbluffed. So putting all that together, along with what Paul just mentioned, I think actually finding a nitty fold here is fine. I don't think it's even that nitty, especially against cutoff, because again, like, cutoff here is not supposed to have as many offsuit combos, so maybe Button would find some like king jack off, king queen off, which gives him a lot of more bluff combos. Um, but I mean, cutoff those are a bit less.
Yeah, so Dean C just asked, does not having a spade is good? And yeah, just going back to what Alexandra said here, if the positions were slightly different, so if it was again, a big blind first button, then villain may have more of those hands like King Jack off at some frequency. Maybe more if we're looking at, say, small blind versus button, they should have maybe some frequency of King Jack off, and then it becomes more of a thing. But in this situation, I don't think it's all that relevant not having a spade. If we had a spade, of course, we are going to be blocking some hands like King Jack and Queen Jack of spades. But again, most of his range is going to be highly concentrated around ace-x hands anyway. And yeah.
Yeah, and even his bluffs, they are gonna have a lot of equity against us. So if he has King Jack of spades here, like he has an overcard, he has a flash draw, he has a gut shot, and he's also in position. So we're not doing great here even against his bluffs, and we can just call he's not. I mean.
No, Dean is saying if we had the spade in our hand.
If we had the spade, no, I think that's probably even worse because then we block some natural bluffs.
Yeah.
Like even more of them. And it's not like we can river a flush if we have a spade, so no, it's quite irrelevant.
Yeah.
And our hero does find the fold, which I think it's a really nice play. We should, give him a shout out for, because some people just autopilot here and be like, it's a small size, I have a jacks, I just call. But yeah, I think this fold is actually fine. If you had 5-6 here, I think that's actually a much better call than jacks.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's easy to autopilot here and just think, I'm facing a small size, I'm going to call. But when you're given that you're out of position and the range you're facing, you have to obviously account for those as well as the size you're facing. So yeah, nice call by Hero.
Okay, let's go to the last hand and then wrap it up, I guess. Again, a tight range spot. What's going on? Okay, MP versus cutoff. We go for the 3-bet with jacks. Board is king, deuce 8. I think this is quite a clear range bet board. We could go like small. I think we could even go like 40% half pot, but yeah, I would just range bet here, not looking into anything else. Do you have other thoughts?
Yeah, not much to say. King high boards are really good for us as a 3-better, so yeah, betting is the high frequency for small size. Matthew Rebel says, should we ever range bet out of position? And yeah, this is exactly the sort of spot we're talking about. This could be a range bet for a small size.
Yeah, we can actually range bet quite often out of position in 3-bet pots. It just needs to be on the right board. And the way you think about it is, how much of your bluffing range hits that board. I mean, bluffing range. Unpaired hands, for example, is if it's a king, like a lot of our 3-bets are going to be ace, king, king, queen, king, jack, and so on. But if we have a board like 6, 7 deuce, where first of all we don't have a lot of top pairs because we don't 3-bet as much ace-7 or king-7, and then a lot of our high Broadways just miss, then we have to slow down and implement a bit of a more polar strategy. But these boards like king-high, even queen-high in tighter position, when they aren't supposed to have a lot of ace-queen off, or jack-high, these boards are a bit better for us, so then we can start range betting. Okay, on the turn, our hero goes for a check, and I think that's a fine play. Again, a similar spot to what we've discussed, where here I don't really see the purpose of going mergy or anything. I would just keep betting polar and bet my best king x and, my best bluffs. You want to add anything about this turn?
No, I think it's good.
And on a 10 river, I think I would like to see hero going for a thin value bet here. And the way I like to think about this spot is, what are my options? So I could check, and then if I face a bet, the problem with checking here is that I don't think this is going to be an overbluffed spot. Again, a tight range scenario, and it's just not natural to find a lot of bluffs here. So if we check, I think we'd have to just check fold this hand against the bet. But then if we block bet, one of the functions of block betting is, of course, to get called by worse hands, but also to prevent him from betting bigger when he has a king. So even though there's not a lot of force hands here to call, I think our hand is still worth 1/3 value bet. Like, what do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I agree. I think going for a bluff bet here will be nice. There's going to be some ace tens in people's range that they're going to call. So ace ten of clubs, diamonds, and spades should get here. There's going to be some worse pocket pairs such as pocket nines. Villains should have some 8x as well. So yeah, I would generally go for a small bet here with pocket jacks. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah. Another thing I would like to add here in this spot is that what you're gonna see in theory is that against a small bet, villain should find some bluff raises with stuff like, I don't know, ace queen that call the flop, or like maybe there's some 8x into a bluff or some lower pairs. I'm not exactly sure how his range constructions look like, but he should definitely have some bluff raises. And once he doesn't find that, because people definitely don't find enough bluff raises in this spot, then the view of going for thin value bets becomes higher. So although it's not super attractive or doesn't seem like a snap bet, I think it's probably the best option that you have here.
Yeah, and Matthew Rebel says, would ace of clubs, 10 of clubs bet turn? I think the answer to that is probably going to be a mix. You're going to find some opponents that'll bet it quite often. You're going to find some opponents that'll check it quite often. So it's going to be nice to bet sometimes because you get to river some flushes. You might also put some better hands into a tough spot, but also it's nice to check sometimes as well because again, you're going to not want to get shoved on, which can happen sometimes. You get to realize your equity. And you get some stronger hands in rivers that contain a club as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be pretty close whether it gets bet or whether it gets checked.
He meant as in position.
Yeah, as in position, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think so anyway.
Yeah, out of position, I think it's gonna be the same thing. Probably more betting than checking because we want to prioritize higher equity bluffs in these scenarios.
Okay, is that everything?
I guess that is everything for today.
Do you want to just give one last shout out for the Discord and girls?
Yeah, so don't forget there is still a discount available for Black Friday on Run It Once. There is up to 25% discount on all curses and vision. And also, if you want to join our Discord, you can find a lot of nice theory discussions there, hand reviews, and we're also running a mentorship program that you can find a bit more info on our Discord that you can find in the chat. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope you know a bit more about 3-bet bots at this point. I know it can be a difficult spot to play, but yeah, I hope you have a bit more insights now about how to think about these spots and what you want to consider before making a decision.
Yeah, cheers everyone. Thanks for joining.
Cheers. Bye.